I owe $1 to the jar, Johnny Mac. I said San Diego.
Yeah, I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of San Diego's this week.
Yeah, man. 97.3 ESPN.com, Eagles insider. John McMullen joins us here. The Eagles getting ready to go to L.A. to take on an 0-3 Chargers team. Let's start with that real fast. 0-3, what do you make of this 0-3 Chargers team? Are they 0-3 because they're bad? Are they 0-3 because they've had some bad luck? What is your overview, real quick, of the 0-3 Chargers?
I think it's a lot of bad luck. I mean, they're a talented team at certain positions, and it starts with arguably the two most important. People in this league always talk about you either get the quarterback or you get to the quarterback. Well, the Chargers have a quarterback. Phillip Rivers still a very good player, and they can get to the quarterback with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. So it's kind of head-shaking, the fact that they can't get over the hump. And obviously they were in a position to win one game on a field goal, in a position to tie a game on a field goal. Young rookie kicker missed them both. So it's been razor thin, the margin of error. So they're not a bad 0-3 team. And that was kind of Doug Peterson's theme today. He's concerned about the emotional nature of the win the Eagles are coming off of. And then you factor in traveling across country to Carson, California. And he's worried about a potential letdown in this situation.
Can you kind of explain the reasoning for leaving on Saturday? Doug seemed to have some sort of analytical answer to that. I mean, I think most teams leave on the Friday when they cross the country, and he seemed to think that there was some formulaic reason that leaving on Saturday would work out better for them.
I mean, people do. They say, you heard Doug earlier in the week on the 4th and 8 conversation where there was that, back and forth about 18% versus 33% and all that nonsense, and it turns out he was right. So, I mean, the Eagles study these types of things. I don't know if I put much stock into it. I've seen coaches do both. Obviously, there's a lot who believe it's better to get there early, to get your internal clock a little bit closer to where it would normally be. And then there's others that, don't want the distraction of being in a town like Los Angeles for more than you have to be. So I can see both sides of the fence. Generally, NFL thought it's always tougher to go from west to east than east to west.
Right.
And I kind of buy into that just because it makes sense from a body clock standpoint. But it's an issue. I mean, it's been an issue for years. There's no question about that.
Hey, John, before we get into some more nuts and bolts, let's kind of dot the I's and cross the T's on some injury things here. Fletcher Cox, Jordan Hicks, two big ones. There were some tweets I saw that Hicks apparently said he plans on playing. What's the status of those two guys?
Yeah, Jordan Hicks practiced today fully, and that was a surprise. He wasn't supposed to, and there he was on the practice field. And then after in the locker room, he just confirmed he was a full go. So obviously his ankle injury is not that serious. He plans to play against the Chargers. So that's obviously a big plus for the Eagles. Fletcher Cox more up in the air. Wasn't able to go. Corey Graham still not able to go. Jalen Watkins still not able to go. Rodney McLeod, though, was a full participant. So it's looking like he's got a better potential shot to play this week. The other guys are all day to day.
What is actually wrong with Cox? What is his ailment here? It just says calf, but do they gone any further into that?
No, they haven't. They rarely do that. You're lucky if you go upper body to lower body with Doug nowadays. But it's just described as a calf. I saw him after the game against the Giants leaving the locker room. He was limping a little bit, but he didn't seem in a tremendous amount of pain. So I can't imagine it's all that serious, but a calf strain is a big deal for a defensive tackle that needs explosion in his lower body. So you want to be very, very careful because you don't want to lose a player like that for a significant amount of time. I just think the Eagles are being cautious about it.
John, hello, Deshaun. We were talking a lot about Alshon Jeffery earlier in the show, about his expectations that we have preseason and how he's done the first 3 games. Could you kind of take us through how you have viewed him the last 3 games and what were your expectations for him before the season, and has he met them?
No, I mean, I don't think he's been as productive from a statistical standpoint as perhaps he or the Eagles expected. I do think the improvement in the passing game as a whole from last year is noticeable, and part of that, and I say the same thing with Torrey Smith, part of that is just taking chances. I mean, the Eagles kind of knew they were so bad at the wide receiver position last year that they rarely took downfield shots, or they rarely, threw a 50-50 ball, assuming the receiver would either catch it or, in the worst-case scenario, break it up. So just their presence, Alshon and Torrey on the field, has been a significant improvement for this team. But I would think they want the numbers certainly to increase and the success level. Alshon was open deep against the Giants, and Carson just missed him.
Yeah, to kind of elaborate on that, John, is that more on Carson that Alshon isn't, getting the impact? Is that more on him, or is it just Alshon not making plays?
Well, it depends. On that particular play, it was certainly more on Carson. I mean, that was just a bad throw, and he just finished up his press conference, and he admitted to that. So it depends on the particular play that you're going to talk about. And other issues, I mean, there were a couple 50-50 balls that Alshon typically comes down with, and he hasn't been able to get. But as I said, the worst-case scenario and what makes him so effective in those types of situations is even when he doesn't come down with the ball, he's going to make sure the defensive back doesn't come down with it. So all that kind of stuff is positive. But certainly against the Giants, I mean, the Eagles' passing game wasn't nearly as effective as they would like it to be.
What about, the situation with these wide receivers? They brought all these new guys in that Deshaun talked about. Maybe their numbers aren't where they are, but how do you think they are changing or affecting or helping the offense, just having different receivers than they had last year? Like, not having Jordan Matthews and Aguilar and replacing them with these two guys. Maybe their numbers aren't jumping off the page, but is there some impact that they are giving to this offense that's not noticed numerically?
Yeah, I kind of just mentioned that. That's what they bring. Torrey stretches the field. So even if you're not hitting those throws, defense has to respect it. I mean, they're not going to let them run down the field. And I think you saw that in the Washington game.
I guess what I was trying to ask is, like, who, maybe the numbers aren't saying the receivers, but who do you think is benefiting from having those guys? I mean, is that Ertz
and that's what I was just about to get to.
Gotcha.
If you look at that game specifically, Torrey didn't have success. They didn't hit him deep, but it opens up the field intermediately underneath, and Zach Ertz, I think, caught 9 targets. 9, and that's pretty good. So, I mean, if you think about last year, when every defense was jumping every route the Eagles ran because they knew nobody could go over the top on them, that creates traffic in those short zones and makes things more difficult for those guys. So, yeah, I think the intermediate stuff has, by and large, been pretty good. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that even if it's not hitting, as I mentioned, you have to respect what Alshon Jeffery and Torrey Smith can do.
The running backs this week, Barner is in. Is he going to be active, number one? And number two, yesterday Frank Reich kind of mentioned it. We didn't get a chance to talk to you yesterday. But do we anticipate to see more of Smallwood, more of a 50-50 with Blunt? I know we don't know the definitive answer, but how do you see the running backs this week? And do you think that they will run the ball?
Yeah, well, I mean, as some people say it's a cop-out, but it's the truth, and that involves with the personality of a particular game. If the Eagles are leading, yeah, they're going to run the football. If they're behind in the fourth quarter, they're going to throw it a lot. But I think you saw, I mean, Darren only played 5 snaps against the Giants, and you kind of saw what happened from there. And Wendell ended up with over 40 reps, and I think LeGarrette was at 22. That's what you're going to see moving forward, because he's more of a complete guy who's going to be able to play on third down. Now, when I use that word complete, I'm not claiming Wendell Smallwood is Darren Sproles and can catch the football like him or pass protect like him. He's just the Eagles' best option. So he's going to be out there for the majority of the third downs and that type of situation. So he's going to be getting the Darren Sproles workload, and Blunt's going to stay where he is. So for now, Wendell Smallwood is, he's your main back on this team.
Barner
that's not necessarily good, by the way.
I don't know. We'll see about that. He ran pretty well. I don't know that they've given him a chance, man. I mean, a couple times last year, Atlanta, he ran well. Pittsburgh, he ran well. They gave him a chance against the Giants. He answered the bell. Have they given him enough a chance, or are they not giving him a chance because they don't think he can run well?
No, I think it's the exact opposite. They think he can run the ball. They don't have any questions, and I think he can run the ball. And that's I think that of a lot of young running backs, but they're not asked to do the other thing. And Frank Reich has talked about it, and he actually used the terminology, he's a better third down back than I thought he was coming out of West Virginia.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't asked to pass protect a lot, wasn't asked to catch the ball a lot out of the backfield. Every coach in this league will tell you first thing about a young running back, before you can play a lot, you got to pass protect. And especially when your star player is a quarterback, because the last thing they want is Carson Wentz getting killed because they don't have a guy who can pick up the blitz. And that's the issue with not only Wendell Smallwood, but just about every single young running back in this league, including Corey Clement as well.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, as we get ready for the Eagles and the L.A. Chargers. And, John, there's so much the left guard spot. Give us the lowdown on what happened there today. I found this to be very interesting. Kelsey gets a maintenance day, so Wiz moves to center. So what does that say about the left guard's position?
Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting in more ways than that because it was layered. Kelsey, as you mentioned, had sort of a Veterans Day, was given the day off. So he's going to play, and he's going to be at center against the Chargers. You don't have to worry about that. But when the entire offensive line was out there, Wiz was playing center, and Chance Warmack was at left guard. But when they work in individual drills, they do a lot of combination blocking, where the left guard and the left tackle team up, the right guard and the right tackle. In that instance, Wisniewski was playing left guard next to Jason Peters. So that's a clear indication that he's going to be the starter at left guard on Sunday. And it's by the way, it's also a clear indication on how much they don't worry about Stefan Wisniewski. They literally think he can do anything as far as the interior goes. So they move him to center, left guard, right guard. They think he can do it all, yet for some reason they want other guys to be the starter. I personally don't understand it because Stefan Wisniewski is clearly their best left guard.
Well, Barrett was on Monday, and he said, look, when you're in this league sometimes you get typecasted as you're a backup, and that's what teams think of you as. He said that's what kind of happened to him is teams viewed him as a backup. I mean, obviously in his own mind he maybe felt it was a starter, but maybe that's going on with Wiz. Maybe they just say, you are a backup.
Yeah, in certain ways, your versatility and your ability to do different things can hurt you in this league. Because, game day backups on the offensive line are important because generally you're only allowed to dress 46 guys, so most teams are only going to carry 7 offensive linemen, and that means one guy's got to play 3 different positions, and that's Wisniewski. And there's not a lot of people that can do that in this league and be that versatile, at least do it successfully. where you're not going to worry about them if you have to put them into a game. But from my standpoint, look, if it's in game or during the game, if Jason Kelsey sprains an ankle or Brandon Brooks sprains an ankle, Wisniewski can move from left guard to center or right guard, and then you insert the lesser player. I think it's common sense, and I think the Eagles are finally reaching that point, but it took them too long to get there.
The one thing, okay, and that's funny too, because going back to that real quick, I mean, he said today, you know, we're going to work Isaac and Wiz is going to play center. Did they look at Isaac at center at all? Because the one thing would be that's where they might look at him down the road. Why not let him get the reps at center and let Wiz play where he might play? I mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I think right now it's a reclamation project with Isaac Seumalo because he's lost so much confidence because he played so poorly during the first 2 weeks. And I think the last thing the Eagles want to do is change positions with him now and sort of make his learning curve even tougher. I think that's an off-season thing, and I think ultimately that's the way it's going to be in the off-season. I think at that time, I think Isaac is going to move to center.
I wanted to ask you, did in Wentz's conversation, did anybody ask him about paying that bet?
Yeah, he and Jake Elliott, and I asked Carson specifically. I told him, it's not a binding contract. You don't have to give him. But they've worked out something where Carson's going to give the money to a charity of Jake's choice. And he said he's got no problem helping people. So, and he also confirmed, by the way, before they put out the video clip of him saying that, they said it was okay because they didn't want to put him in hot water. But he and Jake both confirmed that they worked something out and they're going to give the money to charity.
That's good. I like to hear that. At least they worked something out and made a good, ended up making something cool out of something that was kind of funny talked about yesterday. Let me ask you, we talked a lot about Doug. And, he makes mistakes and people don't like and yada, yada, yada. How important is it, maybe more so than the ability to X and O on game day, that the players like playing for you?
Well, it's very important. And I always explain this from my days covering the NBA. When I would ask people about X's and O's, I would, everybody would rave about Larry Brown. And nobody would talk about Phil Jackson. And, Phil's the guy with 11 rings, but he wasn't the best X's and O's guy. That was Tex Winter. So, who would sort of draw up those game-ending plays or things of that nature. What Phil Jackson did so well was manage larger-than-life personalities and get through a season. So it's very important to manage. Think about how many different personalities there are on a football team. We constantly see it with this national anthem mess all across the country. And some people believe one thing, some people believe another thing. You're talking about 53 guys on the roster, 10 on the practice squad. Not everybody agrees with each other. Not everybody's friends. And you got to keep that boat moving in the right direction. So in a lot of ways, managing personalities is a lot bigger deal than X's and O's, even though nobody talks about it. Long answer to a short question, it's very, very important that you connect with your players and they want to play for you.
John, it's funny you mentioned that because me and Mike were talking about that earlier. Where do you see this going next with the whole protest peacefully, everything? Do you think this is just going to wash away, or is it something that's going to have to take somebody saying enough is enough for this to be over with?
Well, I mean, I don't know from the NFL standpoint what they can do as far as, they would like it to move on. I think all of us would like, to concentrate more on the actual game of football. But everybody has a right to do what they want. I mean, that's what this country is about. I talked with it about Mike the other day. I think the core issue of this problem is not understanding the protest, not the people protesting, not the people who are against the protest. You have two sides that are so dug in to their position, they lose the entire point. And that is, the First Amendment isn't for protecting people you agree with, who are in lockstep with you. It's generally for the other side. That's what makes this country great, that everybody can voice their opinion. And that's ultimately what all the servicemen and have fought for, and what that flag sort of represents. So I have no issue with people protesting. I have issue with people who sort of take sides and not understand the other side.
Right.
Because they both have a right to express their opinion.
Absolutely. And as we opened up the show today with John, I had said, look, if this thing goes back to the beginning and someone had asked Kaepernick what was his reason for taking a knee, and his answer was, I did it because I don't like the way the veterans of this country are being treated. Don't you think we have a different story?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, I certainly think
essentially because everybody would, a majority of the people would say, you know what, I do agree. The veterans aren't being treated. Good for you. But because he said something that a majority of this world don't have any idea about or don't agree with, they took it and went and ran with it.
Yeah, and remember, you're talking about one guy. There were other guys who protested, Malcolm Jenkins being on this one, being the biggest example in Philadelphia, and he's incredibly well-respected, incredibly well-liked, not only by the team, by the organization, by the media. So I think there's more to it because there are other people that have been able to protest, and no one has questioned them. However, again, he has the right, and that's what I think people are missing. And I apologize as an ambulance goes by at the NovaCare complex.
Right down Broad Street there. Hey, real quick, I got a text message from a listener that's asked about the rule that says you have to be on the field standing and facing the flag.
That is a rule. You have to be on the field. Not. There's no rule that you have to be facing the flag. You have to be on the field for the national anthem. That's always been a rule in the NFL. They could find the teams, I think there were 3, because it is on the books. But no, there is no rule that says you have to stand at attention and actually look at the flag. You just have to be on the field.
And
I wrote about this on FanRag Sports real quick.
Yeah.
I'll give a plug. I'll give a plug to South Park because they were way ahead of this controversy when they were satirizing it last year. And they made a joke about J.J. Abrams because he saved Star Wars, and he was hired to bring us all together by bringing a new rendition of the national anthem. And he rolled out the same song, the same Francis Scott Key song, but the instructions were, please stand, sit, or kneel to honor America. Problem solved.
Very interesting. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Huge week for the 16 2-1 teams, the Eagles included. You go 3-1, you make the playoffs 64% of the time. Teams that start 2-2 make it just 36% of the time. The Eagles have a shot to be in that 64% with a win against the L.A. Chargers. John, we'll do it again tomorrow, pal.
Hey, thank you, guys.